To Marketing as a Foreign Language. This, the 267th episode of the show. Trust me when I tell you, you're going to want to stick around. The most winningest guest on the show, Keith Guernsey. This is his fourth appearance. We have been vibing now for many months, and he has wisdom that you are definitely going to want to tune into. Author of many books, cancer survivor, I want to say twice, probably more. He'll correct me if I'm wrong. You are going to want to listen to what he has to say. But before we get Keith onto the show, a quick recap of the social media news. This from TheVerge.com. All links to all articles in the description. Google adds option to instantly delete your last 15 minutes of search history. Google is launching a new privacy feature for search that lets you instantly delete your last 15 minutes. On mobile, the company announced on Thursday the new option was first revealed alongside several other search and Chrome improvements. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the number of cases that Google has against it, Facebook, also Amazon, etc. All of these politicians, not just in the United States, but globally, are making big moves against these tech giants because people, their constituents, are getting fed up with there not being privacy online. And so Google is capitulating. And so this delete your last 15 minutes of search history makes a lot of sense. It's not great for Google because they're going to lose a lot of that data that they want. Who knows if they're actually holding on to the data or not. But at the end of the day, it is a step in the right direction. Next article, AppleInsider.com. Apple employees threaten to quit as company takes hardline stance on remote work. Apple employees claim the company is not budging on plans to institute a hybrid work model for corporate workers and is in some cases denying work from home exceptions, including one accommodation covered by the American with Disabilities Act. So as I have mentioned many times on the show, I think it is irresponsible for companies to force people into cars that people may crash in, cars that people may die in, to go work in an environment that could be replicated from home. Now, I made a video on TikTok the other day and someone said, yeah, but we pay their wages. Okay, that's a very 1999 sort of argument. If you're a construction company, I get it. Fine. If you're a server at a restaurant, totally understand. But if you're Apple, yes, there are probably technologies and securities issues with them working at home, but I'm telling you, you better figure it out because these employees are not happy about it, nor should they be. The great equalizer for the proletariat, right, for common working folks, has been this work from home model because you can actually raise kids. You don't spend an hour fighting traffic. Greenhouse gas emissions go down. It is obviously where we're going for future work. And so these big tech companies are struggling, unlike some of the smaller businesses that can easily pivot to remote work. Apple, you better figure it out. Final article of the day, White House isn't letting Facebook off the hook for allowing misinformation to spread on its platforms. The White House wants Facebook to act quicker in removing posts containing vaccine misinformation. White House Press Secretary Jen, I'm going to go with Psaki, said Facebook takes too long to remove violative posts during a press briefing. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy said during the briefing that misinformation is slowing the pace of vaccinations in the U.S. Well, there is some truth to that. And this particular administration, I think, has not as much tolerance, not as much patience for that sort of stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, like I said earlier, you're in for a treat. Keith Guernsey is a wise man, a patient man, an incredible man. He's got a lifetime of stories that we have been so fortunate to hear. We're going to continue with his first couple of jobs. If you want to see the previous stories, see and hear them, just check out the previous episodes with Keith Guernsey to get all caught up. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce to you the one, the only Keith Guernsey.
All right, Kellen, that's quite an introduction. I hope I can live up to it.
The Guerns.
Yeah, thrilled to be here again. Thrilled to be your returning champion and hope we do this many more times. I really enjoy it very much. You were talking in your new segment about car crashes. Well, we have a new spin at here in the Atlanta area where young people are shooting at each other. One young lady was killed right down the street in a road rage incident. So if people don't like the way you drive, they shoot you. No questions asked. There have been, several deaths and several near deaths. And it's just, in the old days, you could flip the bird to anyone who was cutting you off or getting too close to you or tailgating, what have you. You can't do that here. You can't do anything, anyone, except keep your hands on the wheel and go forward, maintain your distance. But in any case, that's what's happening here. I'm thrilled to be on again. It's quite an introduction, and I'm happy to lend my experience in life to anyone who would like to hear it. I know the last time we talked, we were talking about my college days, some of which is better left unsaid, especially if my wife listens or my grandsons listen in a few years. But I was thinking back even before that, we were talking about marketing, sales and marketing, and just work ethic. And I have my father to thank for giving me or passing along, if you will, his work ethic so that I could have a very fruitful 40-year sales and marketing career and retire with my lovely wife, Susan, buy our dream home on the lake, et cetera, et cetera. As a matter, we talked about my college days. And again, I had a blast. I really enjoyed myself. I went to Framingham State, a small school here in Framingham, Mass, but it's a lot bigger now. And I made it through by the skin of my teeth. And as a matter of fact, right on my desktop, right next to me, I keep my, can you see it? My degree. So I look at it, and every so often I say, I actually did it. I made it out. I'm not sure how in certain cases, but I had a blast. I learned a lot about life. And then I went to this electronic component manufacturer called Cambion. That's the trade name was Cambridge Thermionic Corporation. My best friend had gotten us summer jobs at Cambion, where his father was the VP of engineering. And I ran the plating shop every summer while I was in high school and college. Once I graduated, I went there first to see about a job. And they said, "Can you type?" I said, "No." "Have you ever worked in an office?" I said, "No." And they said, "Well, you worked very hard in the plating shop. We're going to give you a chance." So I worked there for 5 years. I became the export sales manager and grew the department from $3 million a year to $5 million a year with only myself and 2 other employees. So that was a wonderful experience. I got to work with people in other countries like Canada and UK and India, and I really learned an enormous amount. I even got to speak a little bit of a foreign language like French and Spanish and what have you, but I've forgotten it all, of course, since then, because that's been almost 45 years. And then I decided, I have a tendency to get a little restless. 5 years was kind of my breaking point where I kind of got maybe a little bored and wanted a challenge. And I said to myself, I want to work for a Fortune 500 company. So I went to work for this company called Leading Edge Products in Canton, Massachusetts. And that was another place where it was a wonderful experience, but the details are better left to the imagination. I enjoyed myself. It was a real sweatshop with no cubicles and just 150 desks scattered out in this huge open room. And we were selling computers and printers and what have you as a wholesaler. And it was an enormous learning experience. Like
Was it like cold calling?
No, we had lists. We had printouts. There was some cold calling, but this was mostly lists of people who we were wholesalers selling to retailers like office product dealers, computer stores, selling them PCs and laptops in their infancy. I had a blast. I learned a lot. I partied up a storm. And I actually rose to assistant national sales manager, and I was there like 3 years and decided, again, I needed another challenge. They were, at the time, they weren't doing very well. We used to go across the street for burgers and beers after work, and I had the privilege of meeting marvelous Marvin Hagler, the middleweight champion of the world. And he just passed recently, but that was quite a thrill for somebody who's into Boston sports as I was. But it was an interesting experience. Again, I learned a tremendous amount. I learned about being able to talk on the phone with 149 other people talking on the phone at the same time, and learned to kind of focus and block out all the other ambient noise and close the sales and what have you.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because I feel like that is a lost art form.
Yeah, it is.
Nowadays, and I did that, mind you. I mean, I was in a bullpen. I called up the VP of marketing for Land O'Lakes. And I left this voicemail that I will not soon forget, where I basically told him that I just really love the people I work with. That's all it was. I was like, hey, I'm sure you get a million of these calls all the time. But I just love these people. They're great people. And that's it. And then it worked. Couldn't believe it, because I did all of the techniques that you're supposed to do. I did all of the, you do all the sales training and all the million different things they teach you on how to sell. And I was just fed up one day, and I just was like, I'm just going to go down this different path. And I got him a meeting, guys got through the door. They didn't sell him or anything. Our product was terrible at the end of the day.
I learned, Kellen, a very valuable lesson back in the day to sell high. Go right to the top of the food chain. You can talk to an underling, somebody who answers the phone, but generally speaking, they're just there for a paycheck. Have no real
hey Keith.
Anything.
Keith, sorry. Oh, there we go. Hey, sorry to interrupt you. You sounded like a robot there for about 20 seconds. I think it's the internet connection. But just for our listeners, I want to make sure that they can see and hear you just fine.
Okay.
So to repeat what Keith just said, sell high, I think is what you were talking about. Like, don't, and this is horrible. I'm going to say it though. I had a former boss of mine who said, don't talk to the caboose, which is a terrible way of describing someone. But basically he's saying, don't sell to the person who's not going to write the check.
Right, exactly.
In my experience, those people are always so nice. Like if the person I'm talking to, but they can't do anything. Like you won't make the sale. Like the nicer they are, the less likely they are to actually be a decision maker.
Exactly,
in my experience.
That's exactly right. They have no decision making authority. And I'll give you a prime example. Before, when we were chatting about going up to meet our new grandson for the first time, we were booked on Delta, which we've always flown. I've been a Delta Sky Miles member for many, many years. And but Susan and I both have been vaccinated fully. As a matter of fact, when people ask me, I say I've had all 17 vaccines, because my immune system was compromised with the cancer, and I've had to rebuild my whole immune system with shingles and flu, et cetera, et cetera. So I got an email from Delta. It said, you may be required to have a negative COVID test. And I was always under the impression you didn't have to take a COVID test if you were fully vaccinated. And I'm not a maybe kind of guy. I'm a yes or no kind of guy. Either we do or we don't. Because I only got this like 5 days before we did a fly. And I didn't want to get to the airport and say, oh, you didn't have a negative COVID test. So I started calling Delta. The wait was 5 hours and 59 minutes. I started sending emails.
Unbelievable.
Sending tweets. And then I went on, I've been taught to search on the internet for whatever I needed. And I found the email address for the CEO of Delta. And I sent him an email at 3:20 on Saturday afternoon and got a reply directly from him personally at 3:22, 2 minutes later.
That is amazing.
So, yeah, and I've got a whole host of instances where you have to sell yourself high. You have to market and sell yourself to the top of the food chain. And as you said, you want to be somebody who writes check. If you're in sales or marketing, sales management, what have you, you have to sell high, and that's a skill I learned back in my leads. So I was there, the top of the food chain, and then I go ahead. Am I
sorry. It's just I know it's such a bummer. It's such a bummer. And to the listeners, I'm so sorry, guys. It's an internet thing. It's a connection thing. I'm trying to think if there's a way we can turn off your video to see if that would have any impact at all. But not sure if that will. But when it comes to selling high, it is absolutely 100% true. And I used to sell water purification systems. And God, I mean, the shady crap. At the time, I didn't realize that you could just go to Home Depot and buy like an RO system and a purifier for like, I don't know, $1,000, $1,200. I mean, we were selling these things for like 5,000, 6,000, whatever. And one of the stupid tactics that they taught us to do, and I'm just embarrassed to even admit that these things transpired when I was like 21 and stupid. But I would be in this person's house. I would do like the water test. And then we would be sitting down with them at their kitchen table. And we would say stuff like, oh, if you let us put a sign in your front yard, then we can knock off, like $200 or $300 off the price. And the reality was the price itself was just so astronomically high. It was just unbelievable. I look back on it and I'm just ashamed, but that was the whole sales model. And then they would do this thing where like they would have us call the main office and like talk to a manager to see if we could get the price down. And so we would do this whole song and dance where I would call in and my boss would pick up the phone and we would do this kind of back and forth about like getting them a better price. And it's so slimy and just gross. But having gone through that, and I had one other sales job where I was cold calling car like mechanics to sell them like oil filters and stuff.
Yeah.
But between those two things, I feel like my ability to sell an actual good product, is so much better. So for the young salespeople out there, if you find yourself in this kind of like horrible sales environment, they exist. Like you might be in one, like you might be in, you know what I mean? And you can still learn a ton a ton about selling.
Definitely.
And for everyone out there that's afraid of selling because it feels gross, it might be the product you're selling that, you know what I mean? Like you might need to pivot and go find something else. But if you find a decent product and you're selling, you might just feel slimy just selling. And it takes a lot of courage and a lot of time and a lot of experience to master the craft of sales. And if you start looking at sales as kung fu, as like a martial art, as like being a great hitter in baseball or a great pitcher and the skill of it, it is a truly fascinating world to live in. And there's a ton of money on the other side of it if you get good at it.
This is true. Very true. And, it's not for everyone, but, someone said that salespeople are born, you're born to sell. And that's not true at all. You can teach yourself or be taught. You just have to open your mind, open your ears. I remember, do you remember the name Tom Hopkins? He's a sales champion. And he said, the best piece of advice I give any salesperson is the good Lord gave you one mouth and two ears. Use them in that ratio or that proportion, if you will. As a matter of fact, while I'm on the subject, he wrote a great book. If you're new in sales, he wrote a great book, which I have and have read maybe a dozen times over the years, How to Master the Art of Selling. And it talks about, selling on the field, selling on the phone. I did a lot of selling on the phone, but there's a difference between true telesales people, telesales professionals, and these telemarketers who call you at dinner time trying to sell you long distance phone services or what have you. So, it's important to keep your ears open, learn craft and study, and learn from those that are more experienced. That's why you have a boss and a boss's boss and what have you. Where I left off was talking about my days at Leading Edge. Wonderful experience, but again, I started getting restless, and I decided to go to kind of more corporate PC sales and sell for computer land. Again, had a great couple of years there, but unfortunately, they did away with my outside sales department completely and just became a retail storefront. So I was left back on the street, and interesting story. We went to celebrate in Boston's Faneuil Market, and we had some adult beverages. Actually, we had more than a few adult beverages. And we were walking across the bridge in Boston Harbor, and the other two guys bet me $100 each that I wouldn't dive in. It was December 7th, so the water was a little on the chilly side, but I did it. And until we moved recently for the fifth time, I had that canceled check for $100 for diving into Boston Harbor. So
What?
I was a little bit of a kind of a loose cannon back in the day. Now I'm just a sedate, married old buddy.
That is too wild.
And,
Okay, so you're with your
yeah.
friends, and you've imbibed some alcohol. How old were you at the
Yes.
time?
Well, let's see. This was 1985, so I was 32. I had to do the math. Math has never been my strong suit, but I was around 32. Chronologically 32. Mentally, well, maybe about 15 or so, because not only did I dive in, but it was low tide, and I couldn't reach the ladder to climb up on the cement stanchion there, so I just across the bay. I just barely made it, and I grabbed. Right, go ahead.
No, I mean, just okay. So, all right. So, I do want you to finish the story, but there's a guy named Wim Hof who will take ice baths, and he's broken a bunch of world records for cold tolerance, pretty incredible guy. And he can do that because he's trained. Something tells me you weren't training to jump in. Also, did you go down into your underwear before you jumped in Boston Harbor? How did that work exactly?
No, I took my shoes off, but nothing else. So I was swimming in full clothing. Fortunately, one of the guys had a condo with a sauna in it, from where I ended up getting out of the boat. And they took me in, wrapped me in a blanket, took my clothes off, and put me in the sauna until I thawed out a little bit. But needless to say, that was it for that type of adventure. I didn't.
You so easily could have died.
Oh, no question about it. No question about it. But the good Lord wanted me to live to come on your show again. That's my story. He wanted me to make another appearance.
Obviously, the good Lord was interested in you in Marketing as Foreign Language, episode 4. Let me ask you this: because you were successful in sales, do you feel like the type of personality that would jump into Boston Harbor in December is the same kind of personality that, you know what I mean? Like that kind of risk taker, fearless, like whatever. I don't care if you tell me to F off. I'm selling you anyway, sort of vibe.
No, absolutely. There's no question about it. I took the biggest risk of my life. And look how it turned out when I met Susan. I was kind of just broken up with my girlfriend, kind of down the dumps, just looking for some companion, somebody to go to a movie with. I had a condo up in the Lakes region of New Hampshire, up in Lake Lanier, but I share it with, just go out to dinner with, go to a movie with, etc. And I was going to a bar every Friday night. I went up there on weekends, and I was like Norm. You remember Norm at Cheers, where he walked in and everyone said Norm? Well, when I walked in every Friday night, everyone said Guerns, and having everyone know your name is not all it's cracked up to be, especially when it comes to a liquid alcoholic environment. So long story short, went to the convenience store, bought a paper, started searching through the personals, and found one that said WWWF. I had no idea what that meant, but I wanted to find out. So I was curious. I dialed the phone. Nice young lady answered the phone, and we got to talking. I didn't ask her right away, but we talked about our mutual love of family. We talked for an hour, and then I said, "What does WWWF mean?" And she said, "Widowed white female." And I said, "What is the third W?" She says, "I don't know. Must be a typo." Of course, subsequent years, I learned that third W was for wonderful. But that was the biggest risk I ever took in my life. And look at how it turned out. We've been together for 25 wonderful years. And it's been phenomenal. I don't know. I shudder to think what I would do without her.
Wow. Yeah, I love hearing that. I do. Because there's so many, if you just live your life based on statistics, you'll get stuck in this trap of, second marriages tend not to do as well as first. And, but stats are just made to be broken. And there's so many variables that go into this life of ours. And, when I inhale, I want to inhale gratitude. And when I exhale, I want to exhale compassion. It's like, we're just not that different. Like when at the end of the day, we're all trying to do this thing right, and we're not our bodies. These are just temporary vessels to go through this particular experience. And it's always a pleasure having you on the show. It's so much fun.
My pleasure. I love it.
Yeah, it's just a true joy. So we're coming up at the end of the show. I'm gonna do a quick pitch for my show, and I'm gonna leave the Guerns with the final words. Y'all know the drill. 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We'd love to see you on the live show. YouTube.com/Send It Rising is where you can go to the chat box and just leave a comment. Every time I see a comment, every time my guests see a comment on the live show, it just brightens their day. So you can have good positive karma by doing that. If you're busy at 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, hey, I don't judge you. I'm busy. I'm doing the show. I can't be leaving comments on my show. I'm doing my show. If you're listening to it after the fact, iTunes, Spotify, we got like 125 downloads the other day. It was really exciting. So we really appreciate everybody downloading the show. If you want to support us, go ahead, go to youtube.com/Send It Rising, leave a comment, hit that like button. It just helps with the algorithm, so that we can be seen a little bit better. And then obviously I own Send It Rising Internet Marketing. We're a digital agency. We build WordPress websites, write blogs, do social media, and pay-per-click. Ladies and gentlemen, Keith Guernsey, episode 4. What a joy. Let's give him the final word. Guerns, what do you have to say to the good people?
It's my pleasure. And I just want to say, if anyone needs more detail, especially cancer patients, I'm writing my 8-point plan for living well with cancer. Please email me, follow me on Twitter at the Guerns, or email me at theguerns2005@yahoo.com. It's a true pleasure, Kellen. I really enjoyed it. And thanks for having me on again. I hope we can do it again soon.
Yes, sir. The Guerns, TheGurns. The Guerns, TheGurns. In case you're wondering how to spell that. Thanks, y'all, for swinging by the show. We'll see y'all next time.